There's a quote from Dan Sullivan that explains how you think the more successful you become. Here's the quote. You'll notice that as you go forward, that everything in your future has the qualities of being both more achievable and more measurable than the things you did in the past. That's one thing I've learned over and over and over, coaching highly successful people, but also just watching my own self, is that the more I move forward and the more I achieve in my life, the more my goals are more achievable and more measurable. And the thing I notice about people who haven't made big progress in their life is that their goals are very broad, very unclear, and very non-specific, very non-measurable. Now, as you move forward in your life, you want to have less and less goals. You want to get clearer and clearer on your future self. There's a quote from Robert Brault. Robert Brault said, "We're kept from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal." We have a lot of lesser goals. If you've got a lot of lesser goals, if you've got 10 goals, then you're not clear. You're not focused on your future self. Even Gino Wickman in his book Traction said that businesses that have more than 3 goals usually don't accomplish very much over a 6-month period of time. A lot of business owners and a lot of people have like 10 goals they're trying to accomplish. And if you're moving your life in that many different directions, it's obvious you don't have a lot of focus. Focus creates movement. Concentration of effort is what creates momentum. You want to have 1, 2, or 3 goals max. No more than 3 goals, and those goals should be highly achievable and highly measurable. It doesn't do you any good to have goals that you're not going to achieve. That's not good for your confidence. It's not good for anything. You want achievable goals and highly measurable goals, highly specific. There's 2 attributes of achievable and measurable goals. One is it's either an event or a number. The event might be that you've actually completed something, like you actually completed writing that book, or you actually completed the marathon in a certain amount of time. So there could be an event, like you actually reached a destination. Maybe you took that vacation. That could be a goal, is that an event actually occurred, or that a number was achieved or reached. So I'll give an example of my big 3 for the next 6 months. This is just for the next 6 months, the last 6 months of 2021. But my big 3 personally I'm getting ready to launch my next book, The Gap and the Gain, and I want to sell 200,000 copies of that. That's measurable. It's achievable. It's a huge stretch. Doesn't mean it's not a huge stretch to sell that many copies in a certain amount of time, but it's measurable. It's achievable. It's beyond what I've done in the past. It's going to take courage. It's going to take new and better strategy. But that's a big aspect of hope and motivation. According to expectancy theory and according to hope theory, in order to have high motivation and high hope, you have to have a clear, measurable outcome that you want, and you need a strategy or a pathway to getting there, or many different workable strategies or pathways. Actually, the more psychologically flexible you are, the more you're willing to try multiple different pathways or strategies to achieving your goal. The third aspect is having a sense of agency or confidence that you can actually find and execute that strategy. So just as an example, there's a great quote that says, "What got you here won't get you there." That's from Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, the performance coach. What got you here won't get you there. Insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. And that's actually what the research on hope has found. Low hope people are unwilling to find new pathways or strategies to achieving their goals. Instead, they're just going to try the same thing over and over and over again. And if it doesn't work out, they just get upset, they disengage, they distract themselves with social media or something else. Whereas high hope people are highly adaptive, they're flexible, they're willing to find multiple different pathways to getting where they want to go. There's actually a great book on this subject called The Third Door by Alex Banyan. I believe his last name is Banyan. But the whole concept of the third door, and he bases his idea on a nightclub, getting into a nightclub. He says all goals or all success is like a nightclub. There's one door, the main door, and that's where 99% of people go. And there's a huge line, and most people are not going to get in. That's the main way that most people try to achieve things. It's just trying to go through the front door. It might take you forever to get in. You might not get in at all. That's just the common, non-creative way of getting in. The second door is for the VIPs and the celebrities. Most people are not allowed into that door. Well, the thing that Banyan's book's all about is that there always is a third door, and no one tells you about that third door because that third door is not obvious. It may require you to run down a back alley, knock on a door a million times, jump through a kitchen window, sneak in some way. There's always a third door or an alternative pathway, but it takes a lot of creativity, flexibility, and adaptability to find that third door. So the reason I brought all this up is, as it relates to my first goal, 200,000 copies of The Gap and the Gain, I've never done 200,000 copies of a book in a 3 to 6 month period of time. I've done at least half of that before, but what got me here won't get me there. And so I've got to find better strategies, better pathways than what I've done in the past if I want to achieve that goal. And if I'm flexible and if I'm adaptive, I will find better strategies than I've applied in the past, although I can apply some of what I've applied in the past, But if I'm going to achieve something I've never done before, I need to try things I've never done before. And obviously, if I'm going to commit to that outcome, it's going to require high levels of courage on my part, high levels of learning, adaptability, thinking, and hopefully an upgrade in my thinking. There's a great book on this subject actually by Adam Grant. Adam Grant wrote a book called Think Again recently. And in that book, he talks about how as people, we're constantly updating our technology. You get updates on your smartphone, on your iPhone. You get updates to your computer, maybe your car. But people rarely update their belief systems, their thinking systems, their strategy. They even rarely update their identity. One of the things that Grant talks about is that you should not attach your current identity to your past identity, because hopefully you've learned things and hopefully you're not the same person you were in the past. Hopefully you can see things better than you did in the past. Hopefully you've had experiences and you've learned things that your former self simply didn't know. Like 3, 4, 5 years ago, hopefully you're better off. Hopefully you're clear. Hopefully you know things because of your experiences that your former self didn't know. There's a great quote that Adam Grant shares in that book from the billionaire investor Ray Dalio. And the quote is essentially, if you're not embarrassed by who you were 12 months ago, you didn't learn enough. Or if you didn't think that what you were doing 12 months ago was stupid, 12 months ago, you didn't learn enough. The idea is, hopefully you're advancing and approaching your goals so fast and learning through failure, learning through feedback, that what you were doing 12 months ago was like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's totally outdated. And obviously one of the ways to do that is to be on an aggressive, approach-oriented way. Psychologists have found that you're either approach-oriented or you're avoid-oriented. If you're approach-oriented, that means that you're willing to fail, you're willing to try, you're willing to learn, you're willing to get feedback, you're willing to update your thinking, you're willing to update your strategy. Whereas if you're avoid-oriented, you don't want to deal with that pressure. You don't want to fail. You're worried too much about the risks. You're worried too much about maybe failing. Whereas if you're approach-oriented, you're willing to fail. You want to fail because you know that right now you're wrong and you want to just be less wrong. You want to update your thinking. One of the things that Grant talks about in the book is just the idea of feedback. He gives the example of first graders and of just doing multiple drafts, of even drawing a picture. So there was a group of first graders that, drew a picture of a butterfly. And then they got a lot of feedback from their teachers and their peers on how they could improve it. And so the second draft, they applied that feedback, and they ultimately did this over and over and over again and did 4 drafts. And by the 4th draft, it was uncomparable, the butterfly that these kids could draw versus their first draft. But if you think that the first draft is the max of your capability, you're selling yourself short. Through feedback, through learning, through experience, through a few drafts or through a few iterations, it's insane how much you can grow, how much you can change, how much you can improve. Human beings can grow. They can transform, they can improve. Your way of doing things, your way of seeing things can grow and transform and improve compared to your former self. You don't have to do things the way you've always done them. And so as Grant said, you shouldn't attach your current identity to your former self, because if you do, then you lock yourself into thinking you always have to do things the way you've done them, which is not true. You don't have to believe what you used to believe. You don't have to do things the way you used to do things. If you're advancing, if you're upgrading, if you're improving, then you should do things differently than your former self, hopefully better. And your future self will do things differently as well. So here are my big 3 in a nutshell. Launch, gap, and gain. Sell over 200,000 copies by the end of the year. I also want to get 100,000 people on this YouTube channel. That'll be a massive stretch. I'm probably going to have to film about 200 or 300 videos to make that happen. And they've got to be better and better videos, more useful videos. And then I want to get 100,000 people into my free Future Self course. And so actually down below, you can get the link to join that free Future Self course. There's 30 days of free training, all science on how you can imagine and become your desired future self. So I only share my own goals to say they're pretty measurable. They're also pretty achievable, but they're massive stretches. But if I actually achieve those over the next 6 months, it will represent a big leap. There's a great book actually by Gay Hendricks. I recommend this book to everyone. It's called The Big Leap. And really the idea of a big leap is that by accomplishing various outcomes, you've now made a big leap. You're now in a different position than you were before. For example, if I accomplish these 3 outcomes, my life's in a completely different place. I've got different position, different trajectory, different confidence, different mindset, different freedom, different possibility than my current self. It's a big leap. And once you've made that big leap, you're now in a different position. You've got a different identity, a different mindset, a different ability than your former self had. You've got different knowledge, skills, capabilities, but also different freedoms and different potential. So you should definitely consistently be making big leaps every 3 to 6 months. And you clarify that by accomplishing 3 specific outcomes, no more than 3. If you've got more than 3 goals, then you're too spread thin, you're seeking lesser goals, you're too split focused, you're not focused enough, not clear enough, and not concentrated enough to actually get extreme momentum towards your future self. So just back to this quote from Dan Sullivan, and I invite you to think about your own self. You'll notice that as you go forward, that everything you want in your future has the qualities of being both more achievable and more measurable than the things you did in the past. So, what are your big three? What are the three outcomes that you're trying to accomplish right now? Or even just the one major outcome you're trying to accomplish right now? Is it achievable and is it measurable? And if you actually accomplish it, will it be a big leap? Will it allow you greater levels of freedom, confidence, situation than your current self? And then also you could apply the same quote to your past, looking back at your own goals. Recently, I was looking at my own lists of goals, and they weren't very measurable, and often they weren't achievable. Sometimes they were so outlandish, they were impossible. I was setting myself up for failure in the beginning, but also I would look at my goals and they were completely disjointed. They weren't clear, they weren't cohesive, and they were all over the place. And so it's fun to look at your old goals and see that they were less achievable, less measurable than your goals are now. And as you continue on, your goals will become increasingly achievable and measurable, which will allow you to make better progress and allow you to consistently build your confidence in situations in the future. So, hope you enjoyed that quote from Dan Sullivan. He's the co-founder of Strategic Coach. He's amazing, an absolute gem of a person. And hopefully you enjoyed this goal. I invite you, now that you've done that, to set your own big three for the next 6 months and to create your own big leap. And to be sure that as you set goals in the future, that they're achievable and measurable, and that you don't set more than 3 for yourself so that you can actually concentrate and make massive progress. Down below, you can get access, as I've stated, to my free Future Self course. Please like this video if you haven't done so. Please subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this, and have an amazing day.